Welcome to Malpractice Podcast.
Hello, are you ready to get started?
I don't know why hello is so funny today. I think it's because I'm delusional.
Yeah, you're a little delirious is the right word.
Oh, is it? Yeah, it is. I'm not, well, I would say I'm delusional,
I would
but
give you
I'm
both.
also delirious.
Do you want to tell the people why?
Yeah, so I thought that yesterday I was 20 years old, which even 20-year-old Jessica shouldn't have done what I did.
You almost made me spit out my water.
But essentially, Michelle is like fun. And I'm not fun. We just, I'm like casual couch fun. Michelle's like making plans.
Yeah, Michelle is out and about fun.
Yeah, so she looked up Dua Lipa and we saw that there was a concert in Dallas, and Michelle was like, I'm going to get us tickets. And I was like, okay.
Oh my God, and you drove to Dallas for a Sunday night concert?
So I said yes to the tickets.
Oh.
And then it was on Sunday, and of course I was like, why would I take a day off on Monday? I'll just drive back early in the morning. And that's what I did.
I have never heard of a version of Jessica who thinks a Sunday night concert and a Monday early drive is a good idea. I've never met that person.
I'm so tired. Like, first of all, I like Dua Lipa. Well, here's the thing. I
love her.
I liked Dua Lipa before. I love Dua Lipa now. I'm a fan. I got a t-shirt.
No, same.
$50 t-shirt. Yes, for me. I'll spend anything anyway.
Yeah, same.
Bag of popcorn.
Absolutely.
Yes, for me. Like, I literally... she was incredible, Sydney. Like, that was a great...
I've heard that she's like a really good performer.
Amazing. Loved her. Okay. Obsessed with her. Like, I'm a big fan now.
The last concert that me and my mom went to, pre-COVID...
Posty!
...was Post Malone. And
Posty!
In retrospect...
Your mom loves
my
Posty.
My mom loves Post Malone. As I think all middle-aged white women do. I can't explain it, but they love Post Malone. Anyway, in retrospect, I'm like, that concert easily could have been a super spreader event.
100%.
Because I cannot think of one thing. You can catch anything at a Post Malone concert, I'm pretty sure.
You can and will, probably.
Do I love Post Malone?
Yes.
Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Would I go back? 100%. He was fantastic.
You know what would be great? A Posty and Dua Lipa concert.
I'd go to that. I'd buy tickets right now.
I love Dua Lipa, so...
I'm going to have to go to one of her shows now.
I'll go with you.
Okay.
It was so fun. Yeah.
Good.
I would go back on a Sunday night with an early morning drive. That's how much fun I had.
I'm sorry. I've never heard this type of non-regret.
Support. I really liked it. I mean, I had a really good time.
That's a ringing endorsement.
I know.
What else? I made a list of things that we should talk about. Because I was like, we haven't... Oh, okay. My list was basically Ukraine. We've already had that conversation. Dua Lipa, popcorn.
Those are all really great things. Again, we love the Ukraine. Stand with them.
If you haven't looked at what's going on in Ukraine, I don't know if you've been living under a rock.
If you haven't seen or heard of that, you have been living under a rock.
Yeah. There's some really well done like photojournalism pieces coming out, and we can maybe link some of those in our show notes. If you haven't perused those and you don't know what's going on, please go look at those. They're really heart-wrenching, and if you can do anything to support Ukraine at this point in time, that's a great effort to support. So, what else?
I think we should intro.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so today we have an interview that we think you guys are going to really like. It is with a malpractice attorney for the first time.
Yeah.
Really excited because I think this was a really good interview. The attorney that we're interviewing, his name is James S. Casey, or Jim, as he asked us to call him. Jim went through undergrad at Bowling Green State University, where he says his journey to law school began. He worked his way through night law school at the University of Akron, graduating in 1993.
So he's been on both sides of malpractice lawsuits, which is really interesting, and has so much insight through that part, like those journeys that he's been on. He's super passionate about getting to the solutions that all parties really want, which is like better is what I was going to say, which is better medical practices for everyone involved. And I think that it really shows through.
Yeah.
I think you can just see like the best intention.
Today, Jim runs Casey Injury Law, which he owns and operates, and he considers the pinnacle of a career that has resulted in nearly $500 million in settlements and verdicts for personal injury victims. He personally has contributed to some really, really cool cases that changed the way that medicine is done in Ohio. So we're super excited to talk to him today, and we think you guys are going to love this interview.
Yeah, welcome, Jim.
Thanks for being here.
Hi, my name is Jim Casey. I am a husband, I am a father, I'm a lawyer, and I do all medical malpractice cases. So my whole practice focuses in that one area. It's been almost 30 years now, and I've been on both sides. I've actually worked on the defense side, representing doctors and hospitals, and I've been on the other side representing people now for many, many years.
Wow.
I really believe that I'm in this because medical malpractice cases have a chance to make things better, not just for the people that are injured, but for the hospitals too, for the doctors too, for the healthcare profession as a whole. I mean, once something bad happens to somebody, unless there's consequences, changes don't tend to get made. And that's really, what my why is.
Yeah, I think that's lovely. We watched your video entitled Finding Your Why, which kind of alludes to what you were just talking about, and we'll link that for our listeners.
Yeah.
But we'd love to have you summarize just a little bit about sort of how you found this career and sort of what you've gotten out of it.
So all of us, I think, have someone in our life who has a profound effect on us when we're kids, when we're young. For me, that was my maternal grandmother. She was always baking pies. She was always making cookies. She was always going to the church. And I remember standing on the, remember when they used to have the humps in the cars because they were rear wheel drive.
Uh-huh.
So standing on the hump and going with her, I remember all of that. And I remember when she died, there was a line around the block to see her. And this was just a woman who she never worked. She just, my dad would tell me stories about during the Great Depression, she would make big pots of chicken pot pie, and the neighbors would all come and get food.
Wow.
So I think she was a very profound impact on me. And I never realized that until probably about 3.5 years ago, 3.5 years ago, when I had a heart attack. And it took me meeting all these people, and all these people who've had all these horrible things happen to them.
Yeah.
And they're learning what happened and why it happened. Because nobody ever comes to me for money. They come because they don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So by finding out what happened and why it happened, I've been able to see people put down their armor and their anger and their bitterness and their resentment and move forward with their lives. They never forget, but they're able to move forward with their life. And that helped me. And after I had my heart attack, I really wanted to find out, why do I do this? I think all of us have a why. Yeah, I bet the two of you.
Yeah.
I'll bet your whys are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you won't get along.
Mm-hmm.
So that really was the journey that I started on after my heart attack 3 years ago. I had triple bypass.
Wow.
And I left a firm that I was running that had 20 lawyers. And I just went out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
My wife wanted me to stop working, and I just couldn't. And I didn't understand why until I went through this process. So it comes from Simon Sinek's why. The why of Apple versus everything. But you can do it as a person. You get a piece of paper and you write down the most important events in your life, high and low. And then you get somebody that you trust and you go through those stories with them.
Yeah.
And something will emerge out of it that becomes crystal clear as to why you're doing what you're doing. It's just, It's been freeing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know we will definitely try and avoid rabbit holing into just a conversation about your why video, because I think it's really important, and I'm glad you described kind of how people could just start figuring their why out and the importance of that.
As soon as I watched your video, the first thing I thought was I need to do some introspection work. It's a good reminder.
It has been it's changed my perspective. I don't know if you guys do this, but I've been really busy my whole career. I've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of work my whole career. When I walked into a defense firm, I walked into 120 cases. So I've been in the courtroom a lot, and I got a lot of opportunity. But every time I had a victory, I felt relief instead of joy. Have you ever finished something big and then you just exhale?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of feeling good about it, you just exhale and say, okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And, by tapping into what your why is, it lets you, because you're going to work just as hard if you win or lose.
Yeah.
And it lets you tap into being able to be present and enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the success or even the failure.
Yeah, definitely.
Not beating yourself up, but just understanding it and saying, I gave it everything I had. And that's all we can do. None of us can control results.
That's great advice for anyone.
One of the things we were really excited about when we first were introduced to you is just the fact that you are a malpractice attorney. Mm-hmm. We're really excited, and then getting to know kind of who you are. You're a perfect person to have this conversation with. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to say the dumb question, what exactly does a medical malpractice attorney do? And because you've been on both sides of the coin, I think you can speak, take that whatever direction you will.
It all starts, everything in malpractice, in medical malpractice, starts with something bad happening.
Yeah.
There's always something bad, something unexpected. Somebody got the wrong dose of medication. Somebody got, the nurse didn't do something, the doctor didn't do something, and something terrible's happened.
Yeah.
From a hospital perspective, they don't want bad things to happen.
Right.
No doctor wants to hurt somebody. But my experience with the doctors is the ones that are all armored up can't see how they may have hurt someone.
Mm-hmm.
And they refuse to see it because their egos won't let them. And then they carry it around with them, and it probably comes out other places. But the ones who really have empathy, those doctors and those healthcare professionals, they'll see it. And the patient never becomes their adversary. They still remain their patient. And then I've had those people, when I was on the defense side, say to me, Jim, I know that this was wrong. I know that this hurt somebody. I just want you to get it over with. Please help these people.
Oh, wow.
I just did a dental malpractice video. I have little videos, little vignettes, and they're animations of all of my cases and how they help. But this was a woman who had a tooth pulled. Oof. And she ended up with a permanent neurologic injury that's called the suicide disease.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm taking the doctor's deposition.
Yeah.
And my client had tried to kill herself. She tried to commit suicide. And the doctor said to me, please don't let her commit suicide, because if she does, I will. And that is compassion. That's empathy. That's caring.
Yeah.
And he went to his carrier and they told him to pay. They ended up paying this woman, and she was able to get the surgery that she needed to try and alleviate her pain.
Good.
So it's just like I said, nobody comes to me for money.
Yeah.
And if they do come to me for money, we're usually not a good fit. The universal thing that I hear from my clients is, I don't want this to happen to somebody else.
Right.
I want to fight for my loved one because they would want me to fight for them and make sure it didn't happen to somebody else. And then the money is just a secondary thing to how terrible the thing is that happened. So I just finished trying a case. I don't know if I told you that.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I had a young man who had a car accident, and he broke his ankle, like the ankle bone that's called the talus. It's let your foot do this, go around and around, articulate. The doctor misset the bones.
Oh.
And he went for 5 months with these bones being misset.
Oh my gosh.
And by the time he got to the
That
specialist,
sounds really bad.
they had to cut off his leg.
Poor guy.
Yeah, it was terrible. But jury awarded him nearly $3 million. And they were proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
When I got a chance to talk to the jury,
Yeah.
they were absolutely proud that they were part of the process. They got to know each other, they became closer, and they felt a sense of community. And I think we're missing that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, we're all on Zoom now.
Yeah.
So finding that sense of community is hard to do.
Yeah.
It was interesting. The defendant was one of these people who would never see that he was wrong. I asked my client to say what he wanted to say to the doctor.
Yeah.
And my client's mom, actually. And she said, I'm sure you've helped many, many people in your life. And I'm sure those people are all appreciative. But with my son, you didn't do the right thing and he lost his leg.
Right.
And I can forgive you for that, but I need you to be held accountable. That's what she told me.
Yeah. Which is fair.
Yeah. And then the doctor got on the stand later.
Oh no.
And his lawyer thought he'd do the same. He'd be cute and do the same thing. What do you want to say to the plaintiff's mother? I hope now that you can see you were wrong.
Oh,
That's not.
just read the
That's
room.
not the way to go.
The I'm sorry never came out of his word. Never came out of his
Oh
mouth.
my gosh.
Ugh. Were his attorneys mad at him for saying that?
They had to know what he was going to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, if your client can't feel empathy, then you got to try it a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way. So is medical malpractice, does that vary? Like the definition of it, what qualifies it by state? Are there like federal guidelines and state guidelines?
No, the answer is no. From state to state, malpractice is the same.
Okay.
The ironic part of malpractice is that the inmates get to make the rules. So the doctors create what they call the standard of care. Malpractice, by definition, is doing something that a reasonably careful healthcare provider would do or would not do under the same or similar circumstances.
Okay.
So it's just being reasonably careful under the circumstances and doing the right thing.
Okay.
So the question is, what's the right thing? And then you get experts on one side and you get experts on the other side.
Oh yeah.
And they all interpret it differently to come up with what the right thing is.
Yeah.
But what I find, and what's fascinating about it, is it's never about the experts. It's always about the facts. Because people can see what right and wrong is.
Yeah.
And you have to just trust them.
Yeah.
And they usually get it right. Sometimes they don't. That's another story. I'll tell you, when I was in a county that had never found against the doctor in the history of the county. It's a Amish county in Ohio. And they feel like if they find against the doctor, they're going to lose their health care. Their doctor's going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying this case for a 10-month-old who dehydrated to death. And the mom was calling the doctor's office every day. And they just kept telling her, keep putting fluids in.
Okay.
Keep putting fluids in. Keep putting fluids in. Well, it was coming out faster than it was going in.
Oh wow.
And the baby just went to sleep one night and didn't wake up.
Oh my gosh, how terrible.
So I was Joe lawyer in that case. I went against a good defense lawyer and I was the great lawyer. I was, got all the other people to say that, this should have happened or that should have happened. And they all look terrible. And we're sitting in the back while the jury's out, and the judge and the defense lawyer are congratulating me on being the first one ever to get a verdict in this county. We came back and lost. It was 6-2 and we lost.
Oh, wow.
And I sat in that courtroom and I cried and I just sat there and thought to myself, what did I do wrong? What could I have done different?
Mm-hmm.
And I was beating myself up for months. This was in about October. And then in December, I got a Christmas card with a note from the family.
Oh.
And they sent me a note that said, thank you so much for helping us. We know what happened. Regardless of what the jury said, you were very important to us and you helped us.
Yeah.
And it was then that I realized that the outcome wasn't what people were looking for.
Yeah.
They were just looking to learn what happened.
That's so important. And I'm sure it provides the family with closure, if nothing else.
Yeah. But in terms of malpractice nationwide, it's the same definition. And really, it just becomes about you're experts against you got to have an expert in these cases.
Yeah.
So they become very expensive. It's
Oh yeah, I bet.
It's rare that I don't have $100,000 of my own money in a case.
Wow.
By the time you try it. So, and that's all contingent.
Mm-hmm.
So if I lose, I don't get any of that back.
Wow.
So it's a huge risk. But if you pick right and you take the right cases, then you can do well.
Yeah.
And then people always look at me and say, you're just taking money from the victims. And the reality is none of my clients ever think that I don't earn my money.
Yeah, I believe that.
Right.
And the unique thing about malpractice is the money that comes to the victim comes tax-free.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's good.
You have to pay me a percentage, but
Yeah.
But it's so worth it, I think. Like,
Sure.
I would think in their minds to pay out.
I mean, that this family that we just tried the case for, they're over the moon wanting to get the resolution and pay me my fee. There's no argument. There's no backlash.
Sure.
They know that, I worked my tail off.
Right.
And I worked on it for 3 or 4 years.
That's amazing.
Wow. See, that's the other thing. It's like this isn't a quick fix. This is like an investment of time and energy, and then you get invested too. I think, it's kind of like paying a partner, like a business partner at the end of it. You feel like you've earned, this is, I would definitely think of it like that. Like, I couldn't wait to like give you what you were due because of all the time. Like 3 years, that's crazy. And it's all summed up in like one like deliberation and then a decision.
Well, you think about what lawyers do. We study for 3 or 4 years, and then we go take one test to decide if we get to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So we get kind of used to the anticipation of it. It breaks you into the anticipation of finality in the results.
Yeah.
You have to have the stomach for it. If you don't have the confidence in yourself to do it.
That brings up a question I was thinking about when you were discussing these couple of cases. How do you create balance for yourself and give yourself time when maybe a case doesn't go the way it should? Do you take a moment? How do you give yourself kind of like an emotional like rebound time?
Yeah.
Because I hear and I feel from you right now that you pour yourself into these cases. So curious about how you've learned to manage that for yourself.
Well, I can give you an example because 2 months or actually 3 months before the case that we just won, I tried another case that we lost. And it was really a sad situation. I'm not going to get into it. I just felt the defense pulled a dirty trick and that's how they won.
Yeah.
But when it was over, I was down. You just feel deflated. To be a trial lawyer, you have to be an adrenaline junkie. You have to love adrenaline. You have to love what it does to you. And it has to make you better. It has to make you sharper. It has to make you better. It has to make you focus.
Yeah.
And it has to make you have to enjoy it. But when you're done, the air all comes out of the balloon.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if you win or you lose. There's at least 2 weeks for me where I am just depressed.
Yeah.
Even after a win. Because all of the air is out of that balloon. And I just, you put everything so much in.
Yeah.
And, it's the Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena speech. You leave yourself. There's nothing better than leaving yourself, laying at the field of battle, knowing that you gave everything you had. So it doesn't matter if you win or lose in the result. It's did you give everything you have? So that's how I judge myself all the time. Is did I give everything I could give?
Yeah.
That's why winning and losing, it's not the measure.
Wow.
While you're talking about these cases, part of the thing that I keep going back to is sort of the public fascination that I think a lot of people have. We always read these stories, and we had someone on who was a special investigator a while ago who basically was the investigator behind medical murders, which is,
Oh my God.
so super interesting, but also kind of along the same lines. There are all these podcasts and stories, Dr. Death, Bad Batch, like these stories of doctors messing up in huge ways, whether they're intentional or unintentional. And I want to ask you from your perspective, why do you think people are so interested? Why is the public so interested in these types of cases?
Oh my gosh. I could talk about this for an hour or 2 hours.
We can have you on a second episode. No worries.
No, but the reality is it's story.
Yeah.
We're all biased. We are all products of our life experience and our common sense and the people that raised us and the people that were around us. We are all biased. But the one thing that cuts through bias is story. So the idea that you tell a good story and the story is the truth. If you can find the truth and tell it, it becomes a captivating story with 3 acts, the beginning, the middle, the crescendo, and the end.
Yeah.
If you present cases that way, and these Dr. Death and everything else, they're just telling wonderful, compelling stories.
Yeah.
And they keep the conflict going, and it's all true. These people are in conflict. My clients, when something terrible happens, they're in conflict. I had a client one time who I asked him why he was doing this. And he said, because my wife still haunts me. The dogs still sit next to her chair every night. Oh. And I have to finish this.
Yeah.
You can't make those things up. And they become compelling to other people in terms of conflict. Because we all have conflict in our life. We all have betrayals. We all have things that have happened to us. So to be wrapped up in someone else's is amazing. But if you notice, the better ones don't tell you what's going to happen. They let you figure it out.
Yeah.
So in this last case that I just had, here's the perfect example. There's 3 questions that a jury has to answer at the end of any malpractice case. Mm-hmm. Number 1, was the defendant negligent? Did they do something that they shouldn't have done, or did they fail to do something that they should have done?
Yeah.
Number 2, did that negligence cause the injury? Was it a cause? Doesn't have to be the cause, just has to be a cause.
Okay.
And then number 3, what are the damages? And they have to value those damages. So in the cases, typically I will put up the questions so that the jury sees them at the beginning, and I'll put them up at the end when we're doing closing argument. Here's the questions that you're going to go back, and here's what you're going to do. But I never, ever tell them how to answer the question. My opponent will have a little hand go in there and circle no for them. and do that. You got to stop, because that's why these crime dramas and these things are so popular, because they don't tell you how to feel.
Yeah.
They just let you feel. And that's really what a good malpractice lawyer will do.
Yeah.
He will let the jury figure it out. Mm-hmm. How do you keep somebody engaged for 2 weeks when you're doing trial for 8 hours a day? You got to have a good story.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to keep people interested. In my last case, I pulled something out that we get as the plaintiff, you have the burden of proof, so you have rebuttal. You get the last word. I pulled something out in rebuttal that had not come out during the whole trial. And I made this argument to the jury, and 2 of the jurors said to me, "It blew my mind. I can't believe you saved it for all the way to the end."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
As much as they say they don't, they want to be entertained.
Everybody does, right?
Yeah.
And
it's my dream to be on a jury, so I hope that I'm
entertained. It's an amazing experience. You're going to love it if you ever do it.
I hope. I literally every time I get mail, I'm like, please, please, please.
Oh my God.
What should, say, a regular person who thinks they have a malpractice case, what should they know before making an appointment to speak with a malpractice attorney?
Well, first, something terrible has to happen. If it's not something terrible, then it's probably not a malpractice case, because if the damages aren't large, and this is why malpractice cases are always large. People say, "Oh, you're just trying to get the big payday." The reality is, unless a case is large, the lawyer can't afford to spend $100,000 to get the experts he needs.
Right.
And then the medical insurance carrier, and a lot of people don't know this, they get a right of subrogation to get their money back.
Yeah.
So let's say you were in the hospital, it's $250,000. So unless you have 250 plus 100, that's $350,000. And that's before the lawyer takes a fee and before the client gets anything.
Yeah. Okay.
So lots of people come to me and they have what they think are terrible things happen to them, but they're not really significant or permanent things like that. It's, I can't believe they did this to me things. I almost died things. But I'm okay now. If you're okay now, it's probably not a malpractice case.
Okay. That's good to know.
So you need something terrible to have happened. And then you need to be able just to tell the lawyer what happened. I spend as much time convincing my clients where the malpractice is as I do telling them, I understand that you're upset about that, but that's not going to get us anywhere. It leads to a dead end. You cannot, in this business, in my business, you cannot go down every rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It has to be something simple. It has to be something easily explainable. If you can't explain it to somebody who's in junior high, then you can't win.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I had a woman who had a husband. I can't talk about any of the specifics or any of the places because there's confidentiality.
Yeah.
But her husband was in the hospital and he had passed out at home. So he had an electrical disturbance in his heart. And the hospital had to do a test on his heart. And they sent him to what's called an EMG lab.
Mm-hmm.
And so he needs to go get this test. And their lab was down. It wasn't working. So the doctor jerry-rigged something with this one product.
Oof.
And he did the test and it came out negative. And he sent the guy home without a defibrillator. And the guy died within 10 hours. Now, other lawyers, because of what was on the death certificate, told the wife, I'm sorry, we can't help you. But when I looked into it, it really was the jerry-rigging of the test that got the wrong result.
Uh-huh.
And because of that case, the hospital put in a second lab.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just helping her and getting weight off of her shoulders, which happened.
Yeah.
But it's also, if the other side are good people, which usually they are, they will want to do something about it.
And that's the change. That's the impact.
No woman who ever has a baby doesn't know about what fetal monitoring strips are. You get that thing that's on that ultrasound that's on your belly.
Yeah.
And then it prints out little strips. It charts your contractions versus the baby's heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
That only came about because of lawyers.
Oh, wow.
Because babies were being born with brain damage, and they weren't figuring out that the babies were in trouble quick enough. Understand this: if we come away with nothing out of this podcast, any woman that gets to term should never have a brain damaged child. If you have a brain damaged child and you made it to term, something bad happened. And you need to call a lawyer.
Wow.
The highest percentage of children that have cerebral palsy are premature. But if the mom makes it to term, there's no excuse.
Wow.
That's so interesting. So when you talk about cases like this specifically that, made some big change, it seems like that's something that you're so passionate about. And that's really exciting and promising as a person who needs medical care to see that someone is doing that. In terms of sort of holding the medical field accountable, what are some more of the changes that you would like to see, and what are some changes that medical malpractice cases have changed that you've been excited about?
So I once had a case where my client was coming off the table for heart surgery, and they were going to take him to the ICU, and he needs to be on oxygen to go to the ICU, so they need portable oxygen. Well, they hooked him to the gray tank instead of the green tank.
Oh my God.
And the gray tank is carbon dioxide.
Uh-huh.
And then they went 19 minutes resuscitating him with the gray tank.
Yeah.
To where he was, brain dead by the time he got to the ICU. After that case, they changed the fittings.
Wow.
So that you can't screw the fitting for the green tank into the gray tank.
It's one of those things it seems so simple.
Yeah. But they never think of it until something bad happens.
Right.
And it's because if you think about medicine, Medicine is all evidence-based.
Yeah.
That's how doctors learn. Something bad happens and they learn from it and then they do something else. There's very little proactive thinking. It's why hospitals are less safe than airplanes. And the culture of the airline industry is, let's figure out what bad can happen first and let's make checklists to make sure it can't happen.
Yeah.
The culture of medicine is, let's see what's happening and then let's figure out how to fix that.
Yeah. Very reactive.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, there's two big studies. One was in 1999 out of Harvard, estimated we lose 98,000 people a year from medical malpractice, from death.
Oh, wow.
And then just last year or the year before, a few years ago, there was one out of Johns Hopkins. The number's up to 250,000.
Oh my goodness.
It is the third leading cause of death in the United States.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And you say, what do I want to see happen and them do better? Most of it's medication errors.
Okay.
I once had a client who was in for gallbladder surgery. Let's say his name is John Smith. And then the bed next to him is a man named John Jones. And John Jones just came off a heart surgery and he has a tube down his throat breathing for him. Well, John Jones gets a paralytic called cisatracurium. And my guy is supposed to get an antibiotic called ciprofloxacin.
Mm-hmm.
They switch. And the nurse gives my guy the paralytic. And my guy stops breathing and,
wow,
goes for many, many minutes before they realize it. And then he ends up brain dead and he ends up dying. But then they put in a system where all the paralytics are locked and you have to have a key to get in there. But it all happens because bad things happen.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to change.
Yeah.
And they're trying. There are people in that industry that are trying to get more like the airline industry, more like nuclear power plants, places like that can't afford to ever have a bad thing happen. I mean, the reality is your chance of being hurt in an airplane because of malpractice, because of something of negligence, is 1 in 10 million. The chance in a hospital is 1 in 10.
That's terrifying.
And people think of the hospital as like the safest place to be.
Well, I mean, don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
We were going to ask you what have been some of the most interesting or impactful cases of your career. You've been super generous, like sharing those already. I wonder, though, maybe if you want to share a bit about maybe your first case or something that, sticks with you.
I can tell you about my first case. Is an amazing, amazing story. So I got out of law school. I went to night law school. My dad had a heart attack when I was 22, and I went back to work for his company. And then at 25, I went back to law school at night. So I'm going to law school at night and working for my dad during the day. And then my last year, I'm working for the city prosecutor's office. And I got to try anything up to a felony.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying domestic violences, driving under the influence, traffic cases, things like that. And the city wanted to hire me, but this law firm wanted a lawyer with 4 or 5 years experience. And the law director convinced them to look at me. And I went up and I got the job. And in my first month or two, I was at the gym and I met a guy that had gotten hurt. And he was, how do I put this? He broke his junk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's one way to put it, I think.
I didn't know you could break it, but you can. The corporal bodies rupture and it blows up like a grapefruit.
Okay.
Yeah. And the doctor fixed it. But after he fixed it, there were 2 little indentations at the base. And the doctor convinced this guy that he was going to become impotent and that he needed to put an implant in. Well, the guy didn't know that the doctor had just filed bankruptcy 6 months earlier and was looking to do procedure.
God.
Oh.
Yeah, he put it in and he screwed it up. And it got infected, screwed up, and infected and screwed up. And it took a long story short, the man became impotent, except for this implant that he had. I was getting ready to try the case in just starting my second year as a lawyer. It was just coming up for trial. And my firm came to me and they said, Jim, you can't try this case. You don't have enough experience. And I said, no, I know everything about this case. I literally went outside the box, went to the insurance company, the health insurance company. You know how they say this may be recorded for quality assurance? I went and got the recordings, and I found out that the doctor's office had told the insurance company that the man was already impotent.
Oh
my God. This is the drama right here.
Yeah. So then I'm ready to try this case, and they wanted to pull it away from me.
Yeah.
And have somebody else try it. And I'm like, no. And the client's like, no. So I bring the client in, and I try to be a good soldier, and he meets the lawyer that they want to give the case to. And when he's done with that interview, the client says to him, I don't care if Jim Casey has 2 years or 20 years experience. I hired Jim Casey for my case. I want him. But my firm wouldn't relent. They kept saying, it's malpractice for us to let you try this case. So I literally left my job, quit the firm, and tried the case. Now, I knew that I would have another job at a defense law firm after I was done, but I had to leave my law firm to try that case. And it was my first $1 million verdict.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then that man, it doesn't end there. We are still friends to this day. I give him seats to the Browns games every year, and we always go. So that's, 25 years, almost 30 years ago, and we're still friends to this day.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
That's how I am with my clients. I just,
wow.
And I don't want to just be transactional. So, and that's really why I strive for my why, to come from my why. Because if you don't come from your why, everything becomes transactional.
That's such a cool story.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I mean, this has been really a pleasure. Our last question, we always end every one of our interviewee guests with, and that is, how do you take your coffee?
As tea.
Oh, you're a tea drinker.
Never got the taste for coffee. It's an acquired taste. You have to drink it a lot to acquire it.
I've acquired.
I was never able to acquire it. So I was drinking sugar-free Red Bulls until I had my heart attack. And then I stopped drinking those.
Not unfair.
Oh, that's nice too.
Thank you so much. This has been, I feel like, personally enlightening. It's going to make a great episode.
Yeah.
You are fantastic, and I could just talk to you all day.
It's been my pleasure to talk to you guys. Thank you for everything, guys. It's been amazing to talk to you. If I can ever help you in any way, I'm glad to do it.
Thanks for being here. We so appreciate your time. You're awesome.
The other thing I would want people to know is how to get me. I have a YouTube channel, and it's Casey Injury.
Yeah.
And on that website is a link to all of these videos about all of these cases. You can click on any of them, and it'll tell you about different cases and how each case made a difference.
That's awesome.
We'll link to all of those pages in your YouTube channel and everything like that. So don't worry about that. Everyone will have access to it.
Thank you so much. Well, now that you've made our day.
You've made mine. Talking to good people is always amazing.
Thanks, Jim.
See you guys.